Hello and welcome to this introduction to the Edge IDE and the widget development environment. In the next few minutes, we are going to take you right from the beginning, how to create your first Edge project, how to configure that project, and then how to share data with the widgets. A widget developer is usually quite familiar with web technologies such as CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. We expect you to have the Edge IDE 5.4 version installed and be a little bit familiar with these web technologies. Other than that, let's get started. Over to you, Paul.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, given that some of you haven't actually seen Connect, is I'll just start by giving as high a level view as I can. I'll try and keep it quite short and sweet. I'll come back to the Edge Connect environment in itself in a second. I'm just going to kind of start with the end results of a development process. Now, the project I have today to demonstrate isn't a banking environment, but that doesn't particularly matter where Connect is concerned. You can develop anything you want within that. Just to explain my background in Temenos, I was with the company Edge IPK that Temenos took over. So I was pre-sales. I haven't been pre-sales for a couple of years, but hence why I got roped into today, just to give you an overview. But essentially, the end result of a Connect development is a browser-based solution. And so that browser can run on any device, and it can be any browser. We don't care which of those browsers you select to run with, or the user does. So where possible, we will always insulate anything you developed in Connect to ensure that it has cross-browser compatibility. Obviously, when you start doing heavy styling, we can't insulate you from those kind of things, but at a base level, where possible, we will always try and get you cross-browser support. In the last kind of 6 months to a year, we have wandered into the hybrid app territory. So as well as creating browser-based solutions, we can also deliver apps that will be accessible via the Apple Web Store or Google Play Store, and will be developed the same using the same environment, and basically means that they can utilize anything on the device, such as the camera or geolocation. So device-specific stuff can be utilized via those hybrid apps. Go on. Oh, so that was a question. So in terms of the end results of the solution, what you're seeing here is, something that's been developed in Connect previously. And essentially, there's 3 layers going on. The first layer is the branding element. So that gives us essentially the screen size that the screens are going to be generated in, potentially give us some of the branding elements. And that's just going to be a standard HTML template. So something that most customers already have in delivery of their own website. There's nothing peculiar or bespoke to Connect in that template, other than a reference that basically says, insert Edge Connect content here. The template, the HTML template, is also where you probably likely put in Google Analytics and stuff like that. So you can always put in elements that aren't specifically related to Connect. The second element is the cascading style sheet or CSS file, which will give us the text fonts, the text colors, etc. Again, industry standard, and again, there's nothing peculiar in that style sheet to Edge in itself, or the Connect platform in itself. The maintenance, or indeed the creation of those CSS assets, can either be done outside of Connect or inside of Connect. It really does depend on the user that is creating that particular platform. Now, I'm not a technical user by any stretch of the imagination. I'm more of a business user, but I can utilize those style sheets from within Connect, and I can add and maintain the styles that I need. The third and arguably the most important element or layer is the actual physical content that is created within the Connect development environment. So in this particular example screen, we've got the heading, foundation, broker portal, another heading, everything you need, some imagery, and a little carousel widget that's going on here. So the content that you see in terms of the images, in terms of the text, would have all been created within the Connect environment itself. So Connect is not a coding environment. It isn't something that you rely on code for. It's essentially a Connect environment that will allow business and IT to collaborate in the creation of these screens. And that'll become a little bit clearer as I go into the product itself. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time in the end result, but just to give you a flavor for the types of things that you perhaps would expect to be able to be delivered using the Connect environment. So if I just go forward into this kind of dashboard screen, we have some tabbed content. So we've got a policies table, and as a user I can say whether I want to see 10 or 25 entries within that particular table. It has a search facility, so I can kind of search away. So tables are pretty much standard Connect functionality. This particular presentation of table is actually a widget. It's a third-party widget that we've just taken in from someone and utilized within the Connect environment. If I go to the Documents tab, well, this was to indicate if we've been back-ended by a document repository that I could actually access those documents or indeed store those documents should I wish. If I go to the Reports tab, we've got another example again of third-party widgets. So the view premiums for this particular branch or broker. On the right-hand side, we've got the data table view. And so this is what would come out of Connect in very raw terms, a table of data. And on the left side, we've got a third-party widget, which I believe in this example is JFree Query Charts, which takes that data and renders it in a chart look and feel. Now, other chart widgets are available. We don't prescribe which one you could or should use, but essentially, if you need to use one or indeed write your own, then you can always do that within the framework that we have. Just some of the other little things that you might want to do from a usability point of view. We do have hide and show preferences. So the tabs here, I've got 3 in show. If I were to click on messages, I would get a 4th tab that would be shown to me as a user. And again, as a user preference, I can turn 3 of those tabs off. I can never take the policies tab away because that's my work queue. But all of the other ones, as a user, I can decide at any time which of those tabs will be presented to me. So this ability to dynamically control the content has pretty much been around since the beginning in Connect terms. So you can actually allow the user to interact with those screens. The 3 little panels that you see on the right-hand side here have also been given a sense of personalization, so I can actually drag and drop and move those around. So this was something that Pete did for me, again as a widget, which allowed me to dictate which of the elements on screen I can move around. Now, in the demo form that we have here, this is never persisted anywhere. So if I were to refresh the page, they would all fit back into their natural position. But with the addition of a cookie or a database behind the scenes, you could persist that storage mechanism in terms of the order of those 3 little elements. Now, I'll actually bring reports back on. This is another example of a widget. So this was something that Pete Chavas wrote again for me. And this was a way of trying to look at data or screens and trying not to force people down a path of seeing a screen after a screen after a screen. It kind of gets quite boring. So we were looking for ways to make that slightly more interesting. So we developed the concept of a cube or report cube. And essentially using the navigation on the right-hand side, rather than going off to a different screen, then I can just rotate the cube that's on screen and look at the different faces, the different sides of that content. I can either do that using the menu to the right-hand side, or I can use the arrows that are placed around the cube. So again, I can just sweep those around. You're not going to see this, but I'm using a touchscreen device, so I could also drag or scroll across the screen, and the cube would rotate as well. So typically, Connect is utilized to deliver form content, table content. If we don't do something out of the box and you want to employ widgets, either from us or develop yourself, then that's the beauty of the framework. You can always extend into any other area that you wish. So in terms of the Connect development environment, the IDE, this is the environment that's running the project that you've just been looking at. Essentially designed to be a collaboration between business and IT. So it's non-coding, it's very much drag and drop, point and click, and we allow non-developers like myself to build the screens. I might need some, or I would definitely need some integration help from IT in order to get those screens talking to back-end systems. But broadly speaking, again, we've got 3 layers going on. On the left-hand side, let me just refresh this page, actually. There's something that's just a little bit missing from this view. There we go. On the left-hand side, the dark blue editors, we've got the data store and the integration editor. Essentially, that's how the screens will talk to whatever back-end or back-ends you have in place. And you will talk to them via COM, database, Java, web services, or XML, or a mixture of all of those integration mechanisms. The data store is there to effectively map between the screens and those back-end sources, and can either be auto-generated or handcrafted depending on how and what you're building. So you can import from a web service or an XML schema, and that import process will craft you the data store that's required. Or as I did for this particular demo, I hand-built because I was building the screens that I needed to build. In terms of skill sets, that left-hand side of the project, very much an IT skill set. In the middle layer, we've got the process editor, which is where you'll start building the actual screen content or defining the screen content, and also the navigational flow between those screens as well. In terms of skill set, more geared towards a business analyst or a business consultant. IT, if they're around, but not a great issue if they're not. And I say what I'll do in a minute is create a screen from pretty much scratch, and you'll see the mechanism for doing that. But the process editor, I say, is really the raw content of the screens in terms of little red H's, which are headings, the little blue Q's, which are questions, and the little white blobs, which are buttons. So you will define your headings, your questions, perhaps your tables, your progress bars, your menus as well, onto the screen itself. Now, if I double-click one of the questions, what you'll see is it covers a number of items. So this dialog here will allow me to put in the display text. It will allow me to put in help text and hint text for the question. If I tab onto the answer, here's where I'll determine whether it's a mandatory answer or not, or whether it's a read-only answer, and which data store that answer will apply to. And we'll see that again in a second when I create a screen. And any validation that I might wish to put on the answer element for that question. So in this case, the question was for cover start date for an insurance policy. And the validation here is that I can only select a date from today's date up to 30 days in the future. So I can't, as a user, select something in the past, and I can't select one for 2 months hence. It's only between that date range that I can select from the date picker itself. Now, the third element over on the right-hand side, we've got the presentation editor, which will allow you to take that raw screen and to apply the branding for that particular screen. So pointing to the HTML template, pointing to the style sheets, and using a Connect theme, which is a reusable set of designs which applies the styles for headings or questions, for example. And if I just locate that particular question within a presentation, you'll see here that essentially in the presentation you're inserting things like columns, sections, tab panes, also display items such as images or videos, and again, any widgets that you have available to you for this particular project. So I've got a chart widget here, I've got a Google map where I would put in a location information, go off, and it would render the Google map for me. So once you've delivered a widget, such as the Google map widget, another one of Pete's, That is available wherever you are within this project, or indeed any other project that you create. So the widget creation is done once, and you can call on that as you need to. So again, in a collaborative way, someone like Pete, as an IT guy, would build the widget. At the same time, what he would do is give a dialogue to myself as a designer of the screens, whereby I could perhaps change the width and the height of that Google map for any given page, or I could say the default zoom level or a default location. So again, Pete will have done the work once, but I can change the design of that Google map in any instance that I have utilized that on screen. So it's quite a powerful mechanism. One of the beauties of Connect is you can have multiple presentations per singular process. So in the insurance world in particular, not so much in banking, although it does happen, is insurances normally have a multi-brand or a white label capability. So they have their own brand and they have affinity brands as well. So you can take the same question set and render it or present it in a variety of ways. But what I'll do now is just take you through a screen generation exercise, which will hopefully bring this a little bit more to life. So I'm going to go to somewhere in the process, and I've created the beginnings of a screen. So it has a home button, it has a progress trail, and it has some headings at the moment. At any time, I can right mouse click on that process and say run, and what will happen is Connect will render that current collection of headings or progress trails or whatever is there. At process level, we're not particularly interested in how pretty that screen looks, which is just as well because it doesn't look terribly pretty. What we're doing essentially is just rendering the content that has been described so far. Now, as I say, it's all headings at the moment apart from one button, so not much going on at all. But this is where I don't need to be a developer. Connect will render what it sees within that particular process view. Now, over in the data store, I have already predefined some data items that I want to be able to use, and there are things like claim type, name, contact number, etc. And these will be either rendered as a pure text field or as a date picker, or pointing to a list, a drop-down list value, so whereby the user can select from the drop-down list contents. And all I need to do is essentially drag and drop what I need from the data store into the process. And I can either do that individually, or I can go for the group as a whole, and I'm going to go for this number one person reporting claim. And I'm going to drag and drop it into the process and say, generate me a series of questions within that element there. And I'll do the same for insured information, drag and drop, go in between 2 and 3, and say, generate me a series of questions. Now, at any time, I can change the question labels. As we saw, if I double-click any of those, I get display text. So I can say, what is the claim type? I might also want to add some help text. Just do the same, and the same for hint text as well. And you'll see the results, certainly, of the question label on screen. If I just double-click again and go to the answer element here, here's where I might decide that this doesn't need to be mandatory. And you'll see the drag and drop process has actually generated a link back to the data store. And that means that if any integration already exists, then this would be integrated off to that XML or to the back-end system, as it were. To say the data store is there as a mapping to those external integration sources. Now, what I can also do here, because I'm just working at a screen level, if I decide that what is the claim type isn't going to be the first question asked, I can also drag and drop that within the screen definition. But what I haven't done at this point in time is affect the data store. So it still has a link, so I can right mouse click and say locate that data item. So there is definitely a referentiality between those two, but I can move the screen version of that question around as I see fit. So say any pre-existing integration is safe. I don't have to reintegrate every time I move something around on screen. I am free to do whatever I need to do at that particular moment in time. At any time, I can right mouse click and say run or preview that screen. So if I run this time, before we just had a very blank looking screen with a series of headings, and now having done that drag and drop, I get my question labels, I get the extended question for claim type and the hint text, I get a little help prompt. By default, this is the poorly styled help content here. We can display help as a pop-up window, we can display it as a floating window, you can target an area of the screen to always populate your help message should you wish. So lots of flexibility in the outcome in terms of Connect. Now some of these, as I say, are regular input fields, some are pointing to drop-down lists, and some have been rendered as a date. Now again, at process level, not particularly interested in how pretty they look, and the default for any of our date presentations is a calendar picker. So that's what you get without any coding or any presentation elements or attachments that you wish. But as I say, at this stage, really interested in have I got the right question set with the right mandatory status pointing to the right drop-down list content. Now, whilst I've been dragging and dropping and creating the process, at the same time, I have some presentations available to me, and they have been updating themselves with the new question content that I've just created. So as I created a new question, it created it automatically within the presentation. And if I change, let's just add a couple of random question marks to the end of the display text. If I change at the process level, the default behavior is that the presentation will impact or reflect all of those changes. And so if I have multiple presentations, they will all be updated. Should I wish to make a change just to the individual presentation, then I can do that. I double click this time from within the presentation. If double clicking were working, I'm not quite sure what's going on. Go on. I think I might have broken it. Why are you going? I'm not sure why that's not double clicking. But if I'd wanted to, I could have updated the content within that presentation in its own right. But as you saw before, when I first went into the presentation, I did have a brand for my broker variant. And just by dragging and dropping those questions, there's something going wrong with my machine. Hold on a sec. I'm just going to close that. Oh, yeah, I think I was going to close it down. Let me just try something. Okay, I'm not quite sure what is going on here. Are there any questions at this point where I try and sort this out? Is this all making sense? Is there anyone on the call?
Paul, I muted everyone, and so they can type questions or they can raise their hand. I'll unmute them in a moment so they can all dive in and ask the questions. I think it's a good overview of a project and the effect of Edge Connect. I think what everyone is probably looking forward to, and maybe this is a point where Pete and you can think about the way forward, is a very small project that shows how to get in and launch it. I can see Andreas there saying that it's interesting, a really great introduction to the project. So if you do get your environment back up and running, complete this part of it. It shows how we put together a project and how it affects things. and then I would think about dumbing it down even a step further, say like how to get started from scratch, or how the widget development will actually occur for these guys.
Yeah, as I say, I'm struggling with my environment here. I'm just going to go and see whether Pete is available. So you just bear with me 1 second.
Yeah, and I can see, thanks Andreas for confirming. I agree, we want to see how to build a widget and how to, what I kind of had in mind was pretty much a blank project, create a blank project, develop a widget, and then plug it into that blank project, and then see a real project like this, and then how to plug that same widget into a real project. And I think I've been trying to brief Pete on that whilst we've been looking at this. And I hope he'll jump in at this stage and show us that widget creation.
Okay, so I've just been able to grab Pete. He's just going to make his way into the meeting room now. I'll be working in my call. Just give him a couple of seconds to get up and running.
Whilst you're doing that, Pete, just to give you an idea of what the different guys on the call would like to learn. So understanding a project has been good. Having a blank project where we plug a widget into it is good. Seeing that.
Yeah.
The guys on the call have, so we have Thomson Reuters who want to display data. So they will probably likely want to understand how to pass configuration into a widget through the project. Both BehavioSec and HID will need to capture data from the existing project and use it in their widget. So they're both authentication mechanisms or authorization mechanisms that need to understand the context they're running in, and then
okay, all right.
Rather than actually display it.
Do you stop sharing? How do I?
Should have given you control of presentership.
Am I sharing my screen now?
I can't see it in a minute.
I'm not familiar with this. Right.
I have a share option on mine.
Share my screen.
There you go.
Come up with it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going back to a much sort of simpler project, just to outline. Can you hear? Can anyone hear me?
We'll see. I can't see it.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Right. Can you see my screen? That's the other thing.
Can't see your screen yet.
Okay, I thought I had shared it. Paul can see.
I can't see
Paul
it.
can't see it. Okay, share my screen. I'll try that again.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's a bit more promising. Okay, right. Okay, right. So this is a fairly sort of neutral sort of project which has just got a few data items for capture. I'll just run it and we'll just go through a few of the very basics then of what we're going to do. So we're using Bootstrap here just for some simple styling, just to let you know. So let's start by explaining, as Paul probably already has, is that Connect generates out of the box straightforward, simple text inputs, drop-downs, radios, those sorts of things, and layout containers. We call them sections. Ultimately, they're divs. They can be tabs and those sorts of things. Now, let's say you want to actually take control and jazz up the content that Connect generates a bit. So the mechanism for taking control of the content, the generated content, is through the widget framework. That allows you to create a small little piece of HTML which will be used instead of the generated content. So I'm going to start by taking this first name field. This is the one that, so all these fields connect as generated at the moment. And I want to show how we can control that content. So we're just going to file explore to this project that I'm demoing. It's called multi-profile. I've hooked onto the back of something else. Now, so widgets, what we tend to do, as I say, they're wrapped up into small little widget files, WGT extension. These files then contain, I may as well just show you the very first one that I'm going to show. Can contain HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and it will be injected into the page where you've chosen to use that widget instead of the connect generated content. Okay, so here we've got a simple input. I'll come to this $$ syntax in a minute. ID and data item, we'll come to that, and then I put some text in. So this is about as simple as you can get with a widget. So within this folder here, I've also got a file called Widgets XML, and this is just like a library of the widgets that I'm including in this package. We've moved away. We used to just have one single file called Widgets XML, which used to list all the widgets across all widgets used by the project, wherever they came from, and we found that got unwieldy. And as we've moved to the marketplace, and we need widgets to be reasonably well encapsulated and distributable, widgets now have their own Widgets XML file. So this Widgets XML file is here, and it lists the widgets in the package. So I've got demo widget 1. I've just got to tell him to go away. Right, demo widget 1, demo widget 2, slider, 2 sliders, and an accordion. The idea is, no, I don't. The idea is, yeah, we can zip that up, add it to the marketplace, and then people can download that zip. And when you download, Connect actually monitors your downloads folder, and if it finds something that looks like a widget, it will extract it and install it for you automatically. So it's reasonably self-contained, but Aaron's going to be improving the API between clients such as our IDE and the marketplace. But that's for another day, I imagine, Aaron. So we've listed, here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 widgets, and they point to, each widget points to a template file. So we'll just look at this first one, demo widget 1. Like I say, this is the one that says hello from the widget. So how do we then take that widget content and use it? So in this is the screen I've got here. It's got first name, surname, loan amount, loan term. These 4 questions in the process editor. That just describes what fields we want to be capturing. How we want them to appear is listed in the presentation editor. By default, they're all text input fields. These are Connect standard inputs. What we're going to do, though, is look for the answer. And for data item or question type widgets, what we do is we replace the answer effectively. We can actually control the whole row, the question bit, the answer bit, all as one. But for now, I'm just going to be talking about data capture widgets, where you just override or take control of just the answer, the data capture. So what we've got here is a list of, in the display type, we can change how that field appears. So we've got some built-in fields. Obviously we can go to a text area, which uses a standard HTML text area, password field, autocomplete, where actually as you type you can get suggestions based from other data sources. We've got some HTML5 controls, but you'll see here we've got demo widget 1 and demo widget 2. It's worth pointing out as well at this stage is that widgets are typed. So within the Widgets XML definition, we said that what type the widget can be used against. So demo widget 1 is a text, so demo widget 2. Sliders are used on numbers. That's why I can't see I can only see demo widget 1 and demo widget 2. We can't see the sliders in this list because the data item, if we go all the way back to the data item first name here, this little T prompts us that that's actually a text data item. So let's pick demo widget 1. We click OK. I can just go back to here and I can actually just F5 to refresh the page. And so what we've done here, interestingly, is the content from that widget is now injected into that page. The important things to note here then are really what goes on, the cleverness goes on inside this $. I didn't actually need an ID, but if we're going to be capturing data and sending it back to Connect, I'm guessing you all know this, but in a standard form it's usually the name field of an input, which is what a form is used as the key when it's sent back to the server. But this, we don't know what, well, we use our data item names as the form names, as the form input name in order to match the data to the data store in, when we come to save the data. Now, we don't know how many times this widget is going to be used, and all the occurrences of the widget may be using different data items, so we need a mechanism to dynamically replace the name with the appropriate field. And so this $$ syntax is a way of our dynamic syntax for replacing content on the server before it gets rendered on the client. So this $$ data item here, if I inspect this element here, we should see that its name is application form 1.firstname. So the server has taken that $$ and replaced it with the appropriate field name. It's also changed the $$ item ID with the ID of the field. So we can also use that. Let's use it in the surname field as well. Answer, and we'll go to demo widget 1. We can just refresh this, F5. And if we inspect this one, we'll see that the name field, the $$ has been replaced by application form 1.surname. So just to prove that it actually does work, if I just put in first and I click this save button, I'm hoping to see in the data store. Did I run with Analyzer? I'm not sure I did. Let me run it again with the Analyzer. The Analyzer is our way of seeing what data has been stored and lets us set breakpoints. AAA, BBB. If I look in there, we will see that AAA and BBB have got back to the server. Now, I'm guessing you're wondering, well, why can't I see AAA and BBB in the input field? That's because we didn't tell it what the value was. So I only gave it an ID and a name. So the next thing I could have done was say value equals $$ item dot data item dot value $. And that is, and there's a document about all the structure and syntax of these for widget development. But if I run that now when the page gets regenerated, the value field has been pulled in from the data store. So that is about as simple as it gets. That just shows you us taking control of the content, a value being captured and saved to the data store, and that value then being retrieved back. So yeah, there we go. We can just see that value equals AAA. That's what we've managed to update the widget to tell it to do. So let's make the widget a little bit more sophisticated. And let's show you how you can configure your widgets to make them behave a little bit differently. And for that, I've got this second demo widget. Now, this is quite interesting. So you can see, let me just comment that one out and comment this one in. So that's kind of what we had. We had this name equals this, and then we also put the value in. Now, what we find with actually doing is we're almost repeating exactly what Connect has generated. You know, if I carried on and did the value equals da da da, so on. So we've got a shortcut for taking what Edge would have generated as a starting point. We find this really useful when we're developing widgets. Rather than reinventing and having to put lots and lots of dollars everywhere, we've just got this way of saying $item.ec generate. And in fact, what I'll do is I will go back here, I will comment this one out, and I will put $item ec generate. So just roll back a little bit to the first one, the first demo, and if I just refresh this, it should look exactly the same. Okay, so it's picked up the styling, which I didn't bother doing before. So you can see the advantages of using EC Generate. You're picking up all the styles without you having to work out which styles do I add everywhere. But you can see that, you know, this is what Connect would have generated for that field if I wasn't using a widget. So EC Generate is actually almost exactly the same as just saying, just let Connect do its thing, take what Connect would have generated. So let's move on from that and say, okay, let's take what Connect would have generated and add some behavior. What I wanted to do then is add some hooks, some event listeners to that using jQuery. Now, the template that I've used, I've already got jQuery plugged into the template file, so I've kind of know I've got my dollar syntax available. So, in fact, just to be on the safe side, let's just go back to this first. So what I wanted to do then, Aaron just gave me a brief, I just want to capture when keystrokes are being clicked, when the focus is gained, I want to change the background color. So let's look at the widget XML for this particular one, and we'll see demo widget 2 points to the widget file. That's the source file. That's what gets injected into the page. But we've got a way of configuring it, and so what we can do to a widget is give it what we call a custom item. It's almost like a parameter that we can give to the widget. And what it is in this case, it's just got a name. We can give things prompts, and we can give them different controls, but this is what you'll see in the IDE when you pick that widget. So let's do that right now. Let's change the surname one. Let's change the surname to use the second widget, demo widget 2. And what you'll notice here, we now have a new tab, widget details. And it's going to say, what is the focus color? I can just type in red here. Now, we've got the ability to give you color pickers and things like that, and class pickers, whatever. So, but for the simplicity, I didn't want to get bogged down in all that. Literally, you just need to give the field a name, and this is what comes out of the box if you just give it the name. Focus color here, it's a text box, I'm putting it in here. If we look at what the widget does with that, and that's demo 2, we'll see on focus, this .css background gets $item.focusColor. So we're now adding, you'll probably say, well, I could have done that with CSS anyway with a pseudo class of :focus. That's not the point. What we're saying here is that this is how you could configure a widget. And that's, again, about as simple as you can get. So the focus color is what's going to be set on the background. The blur, on blur, we just set it back to what it was before. Let's not worry about the keystrokes now. I'm hoping I should just be able to F5 again. Right, so we've gone back to, you see, our surname. If I set focus, the background color's gone to red. I can go in here and change the widget details to, I can now perhaps give it a hex color. And we can see we're now in control of the widget. We'll do the same to first name now. We'll go to demo widget 2, and that can have a widget details of, we'll go blue for that one. Okay, so we're using the same widget file, but we're now able to configure that widget to be a little bit, to be used in different ways. Now, what we find is that if you're distributing widgets among a number of projects, obviously that becomes hugely useful for all the different requirements that you find, coming along. If you know exactly the circumstances in which the widget will only ever be used, then you might say, well, actually, we don't need to go that far. But let's say you might be wanting to talk to some web service or data source or a different website, pulling that data, that's the sort of thing you might be able to put a URL in there, and off you go. You'd make an AJAX request to something or other. Now the other thing this widget, okay, so the other thing this widget can do, which was on the keystroke one, was I just said on Onkeydown. This was something that Aaron prompted me about, is that they look at the rate at which you type your keys or your keystrokes. One of you guys, is that as you key down, I'm going to capture the time and I'm going to append it to a little bit of a new div that I've created over here. So this div has got this ID of test underscore $item ID. So if you could think, if you think that each time this widget is used, this new div is going to be created. So what I'm hoping is that as I type here, we're now appending to that widget's div that was created. If I start typing in here, we start typing in that. That particular data isn't posted back to the server or anything like that, but if I hit the save, again, because I'm not using $item ID, sorry, for the value, $data-item.value in my input field, you'll see that the data was pushed back, but the widget didn't pull the data back in. So let's just, this was one I haven't tried. I will just go back to EC generate. Oops, that didn't work. So we go back to EC generate. So now that has got the value attribute in, and it should carry on working as it did before, because that widget is, and we refresh the page, the data is still there. So those are two really, really simple text input widgets. So let's go into these, the next two then, which are around sliders.
I think these are really fantastic, and I made a bit of a promise to everyone I'd take an hour of their time here. So
okay.
What I'm going to try and do is, I think it would be great if we got, between us, a way to share the projects and maybe some smaller videos that kind of step people into specific things they might want to do with widgets. So we'll kind of work on those. For the remainder of the time, a couple of questions came up, which I think are probably quite helpful as an overall kind of introduction. The first one is how to include other libraries, so other JavaScript libraries and
okay, well, this next example is a really good one, because what I'm going to do now is show you what I'm jumping ahead a bit into using a jQuery UI slider, for example. So we've got 2 input fields and 2 sliders, for example. Now, the official way to do this is, if we look at the widget file, the widgets XML, we had a source template. Now, what we tend to do, is that we've got a header template, and the point of the header template is it would only be included once for however many times that widget is included in the page. So let's say that's the slider that you see there uses a library called jQuery UI. You may be familiar with it. If you've got 5 sliders in the page, you only need to include that library once. So if you had a template here which said template equals slide type equals header, value equals slider1 header, what will happen is the header template will be included in the head block of the page and will only be included once. I've kind of cheated for this demo because I actually embedded the, I think this is this the, no, that's not the template I was looking at. Let me just find the template that we've been using for this one. I'll be as quick as I can. I think it's this one here. I've kind of cheated and I included jQuery and jQuery UI directly. So I kind of knew that what I was going to be doing, so I didn't bother with the header template. So the downside of this is that if you weren't using any widgets on that page, you would still be downloading jQuery UI even though it wasn't needed. The benefit of putting it in the widget header file is it only gets downloaded when you need it to be. So the slider one, this is a little bit more involved, but we still use ECGenerate to create an input field. I wrap it in a display none div so you didn't actually see it. We can change that to see it, but so here is a jQuery UI slider. You point to a div, you give it the slider, you tell it to make it into a slider, and you configure that slider with various parameters. And in this case, again, we're getting these ones from the field itself. So $min value, max value. These are actually values that I've set back in the data store for these. So loan amount had a validation of 0 to 1,000. If I actually run this now again, I should be able to, oh, I didn't save that, I don't think. Should be able to see that, and we can see it goes up to 1,000. So you can see you can configure actually the widget control via your data model. So, you know, stop you putting in values that you don't want to be done. There are hooks. This is the value being set. There's a slide, and so it's that slide which is pushing the value back to that field that you see there. And the same here, if you typed in a value into this field, 500, that then set the slider. Right, that's super quick. Let's just go on quickly if we can. So this is this is not a data capture widget now. This is taking data and controlling the layout. This can be done through what we call sections. So I had my content in a phase here with H3s, H5s, and I was able to create a widget, which again, using that jQuery UI, they've got a library, they've got an accordion. This section here, I told it I want to use the accordion widget, which is one in the list. Jumping ahead, here's the accordion widget. This is all it does. So what you say to connect, again, generate yourself, oh, I'm moving that, generate yourself. In sections, it's slightly different. You use this form content. And then you tell jQuery UI, turn yourself into an accordion. And to be honest, that took 2 minutes, and it all just happened. The final one I was going to show you, sorry for rushing through, but I thought it was quite fun as well. I'll just get back to here. This is a Facebook login widget button. So again, on the marketplace, we've got a number of Facebook widgets using the Facebook API. If I just log into Facebook, you'll now see that all my details about Facebook have come back. We can, if we want to really quickly show you that widget, well, I can show you first of all here. You have to point to your app ID. So when you want an external site to log into Facebook, you create your app. That app gets an app ID. That's then typically the thing that asks for your permissions. The widget, this is a slightly different widget because it populates several data items at the same time. So what we do here is we point to a data group, user data, and these happen to be the names of the fields that come back from data item in the callback. They present you with an object. And these are the things, these are the names. So we actually create questions in our phase exactly with those. You didn't see them because they were hidden, but they were in the phase here, which is otherwise, if you start trying to inject data into the data store and connect, the process doesn't know about it, connect gets upset and throws security exceptions. So you can't just inject data directly into the data store if it's not in the phase. So that's just a security constraint that we try and address. That was a kind of a whistle-stop tour, hopefully kind of covered a few of the bases.
It does. Thanks, Peter. I think it's a really good level of detail as well, going into actually how to do specific things. Like I said, my plan would be to create short, kind of 3-4 minute videos that very clearly describe how to do, get data from the data store, or get configuration from the widget configuration, or how to plug in a widget, or do very simple things that is easy to consume. But that's been a really good introduction. There's a couple more questions that maybe you could try and cover briefly.
Yeah.
In terms of authentication and the configuration of the authentication mechanisms, does Edge Connect development environment itself have control of those authentication mechanisms, or is it per project? How does that work?
It would certainly be per project. We are as agnostic as we can be when it comes to authentication. You know, if it's a single sign-on system or whatever, if it's got a Java API, we've got a way from Connect to call out to any service, be it a web service or whatever that is. If it needs a custom Java API.
So what we need to do then, I think, is look at the TCMB project, understand what the authentication module of that specific project is.
Exactly. So that used a thing called Fortress. I don't think we're allowed to call it Fortress anymore, but that's what handles the authentication.
And that might even be just one option. So that might be plugged.
Indeed, it is. We're not fixed to any particular system.
Yep. Okay. And the final question that I had is around the hybrid development environment. So the stuff you've been showing here now, if you wanted to run that in a mobile emulator or on a mobile, what does that look like?
Okay, I've literally just uninstalled my mobile emulator. I used to have something called Geny Motion, G-E-N-Y Motion, which lets you set up a screen. You can, so our mobile is a hybrid offering where basically you get a shell where you can create pages which are generated at deployment time and included in the shell. So that those would be static pages typically. If you, the rest of the content or the actual pages themselves will be delivered from the web server just as you've seen. Again, the other things we included in the shell will be the static resources, the CSS, the JavaScript, the images are bundled into the shell to minimize download.
Okay.
So actually the content we generate is virtually identical. It's the deployment of the app which bundles the static content into the app itself. Yeah, so I haven't done anything particularly responsive here, but you know, there's nothing to stop us with using anything responsive. Yeah, no, I haven't done anything responsive with this one.
Okay, so what I think we'll probably do is create a little video that explains the kind of how the hybrid shell and how the responsive works, you know, and kind of get that added to a list of stuff that helps people get introduced to the environment.
Okay.
I think it looks like everyone's been very happy with that content. Questions have come through as have kind of gone on. I'd like to thank you for your time, Pete and Paul. You've done a great job. Really explained it to us in a short amount of time. And thank you to everyone else who attended. I'll send you a recording of the video, and there'll be, I think Pete will work out how to make the source code available and these little examples available as well, and more content to follow.
Can I just ask what version of Connect they've downloaded and installed? If they have downloaded and installed, is it 5.3 or 4? They've got 5.4. So what I might be able to do is even bundle this up and you know, give it to them just as a.
Sure.
Or I can give it to you. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you, Aaron, to distribute if you want. If you can be the.
Yeah, okay, that sounds perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Would that? Okay.
Cool.
All right.
That way. Thanks, guys.
Bye all.
We'll speak again soon. Cheers.
Okay. Bye all. Bye.